Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today it's all about the eggs, because we're going to be trying to press our luck to stay down in the dragon's lair as long as possible to be able to run away with the most profitable eggs. Today we're looking at Dicey Goblins. This is from Renegade Game Studios. It's for 3 to 6 players, it takes between 15 and 30 minutes. Today we're going to do a rules school. We're going to teach you how to set up the game and how to play it rule for rule so that you don't have to read the rule book. Let's get started. Dicey Goblins is a 3 to 6 player press your luck game, where every turn you will be deciding secretly and simultaneously if you're going to be running, trying to steal eggs and points, or staying in waiting for the loot to get better. For those that run, if they're alone, they can pick any die they want, which will give them the most points. But if multiple ones run, they've got to be able to take dice of the same type, in this case both of these, but if there's not, then they don't get anything but just a coin. Dice are going to be rolled and added to different sections, but we watch out because if you stay too long and you get 3 death dice in the doom level, well, you will go home with nothing. It's a quick game, it only takes 15 to 30 minutes to play, and fun for the whole family. To set up, place the board in the middle of the table where everybody can reach it. You'll take all 12 dice and you will place them in this Dicey Goblins bag. These tokens, you will give one of these to each player. Now on these tokens, they're double-sided, so one of the sides has the Dare to Raid side, and the other side has the Runaway side. There's 6 of them for up to 6 players, and the ones that aren't being used can be put back in the box. So if you're using 4 players, then these 2 would go back in the box. And also make a stash of coins here. These are worth 1 point, and these are worth 5 points. You can put those out to the side as well. Now over the course of the game, different types of dice are going to be coming out and doing different things. This is the bronze dice. It will give you the least amount of points, or eggs in this case, and it's the least risky as well. Silver, it's a little more risky, but gives you more. Gold is the most risky, but gives you the most, and the red matches the silver. We'll talk a little bit more what these dice do, but in general, those are the dice that are coming out and will do different things. The game can be played up to 6 rounds, and in that round I'm going to show you what you do. Now at the beginning of the game, just randomly assign somebody to be the active player. That active player is going to take 1 die out of the Dicey Goblins bag, and they're going to look at it and they're going to find the lowest eggs. So if this is a silver die, it has some that's 4, has some that's 3, has some that's 3. 3 is the lowest, so they will find the lowest and they will place it in this section. This is called the Dragon's Lair section. There's eggs here and you'll see the egg icon there. By the way, this is called the Doom section, and this is called the Explore section. There's only 3 sections of the board. Once the active player pulls out the die and puts the lowest amount of eggs in the Dragon Lair section, they will then pull up 2 more dice out of the bag. They will then take those dice and they will put the Explore or footprint icon on the die up in the Explore section. Now there may or may not already be dice on this board while you're doing this, but each round you're going to be adding dice to the board. Once all the dice have been placed, everyone will secretly vote whether they are running away and trying to just take eggs with them, or they're going to stay for longer and trying to get more dice. This is called Daring to Raid. Now these would all be in front of anybody who hasn't yet run away this round, and they would be holding them in front, and then everyone would reveal simultaneously. If they've already run away, they would not be voting. In this case, we have 1 player that's run away and 3 of them that are staying. Anytime only a single player runs away, that player can take any egg they want from the Dragon's Lair and then they're out for the rest of this round. So for example, if these 2 dice are there, they would take this one because it has 4 eggs. Each of those eggs essentially are going to be points. But in this case, since there's only this one, they're grabbing this one. They will place it in front of them and they will be out for future rounds. Now if anybody has stayed to try to raid, these dice would get rolled by the active player. And depending on what comes up, if it's a Doom symbol, it will go up in the Doom area of the board. If it's eggs, it'll go to eggs. If it was another footprint, it would just stay in the footprint. But let's say this one went to the eggs. At this point, you check to see if the round ends. It can end in one of 3 ways. One way is if there are 3 dice in the Doom section, anybody still left in there gets nothing, and everyone will start a new round. Another way is if all of these people had run, meaning there's nobody staying in, that would also end the round. And a rare way is you actually run out of dice, And in that case, anybody still staying there would essentially resolve this as if they did run, and each player could collect up to 3 dice max. If you do go to a new turn in this round, you start over by grabbing 2 dice, putting them in the Explore, and continuing the voting in the same way that I told you before. Now let's look at a couple of different examples for running. I first showed you if there was a single person running, they could take any die they want. The second possibility is there's more than one player that ran. In that case, let's just assume this die was here. There's 2 players that ran, there's 2 dice. They can each take a die if they both can take a die of the same amount. This has 4 eggs, this has 4 eggs. Both of those players would each get 1 of those dice. The color doesn't matter because they're all just going to give them 4 points anyway. Now, if there were a red die here, they have to be able to split or take the same amount of eggs without the red die. So if this was it, they can't evenly split it because the red die is there. This would be the same as actually not even having a die. Now, in this case, they wouldn't be able to get this. Each of them would just collect 1 silver coin, which is worth 1 point at the end of the game. The last possibility is there's only 1 player left. And in this case, that player can take up any 2 dice from the dragon's lair, including the red die. So they could take these 2 or they could take these 2. Now let's talk a little bit more about that red die. Because at the end of the round, we go through scoring. Now let's say we had this, there were 4 players, each of them took this and 1 person took the red. All the players that did not take the red die would put the die back in the bag and take as many coins that's on this. So this player would put this away in the bag and they'd get the 2 coins. This player would get 4, this player would get 3. Once all those players have taken those and put the dice back in, the red die resolves. This player can take this many coins from the player who has the total amount of coins. If there's tied, they split it as evenly as possible and they decide which other person they take the remainder from. After scoring, we check to see if the game ends. That can happen in one of 2 ways. The first is at least one player has at least 18 coins. These gold ones are 5, so that's 15, 16, 17, 18. When that happens, we see who has the most coins, that player wins. If it's tied, well, they both win, and the rules say if you don't like that, play another round. The other way it can end is if it's the end of the 6th round, then you just add up all the coins and determine the winner in the same way. Otherwise, start a new round. Now to start a new round, you're going to take all the dice in the game, put it back in the bag. This bag will then be passed clockwise, 1 player, that player is now the active player, and they would start a new round like before. And just to remind you, they would take 1 die out of that bag, they would place it on the lowest egg into the dragon's lair, and then they would draw 2 more dice, regardless of color, and they would put them in the Explore section with the Explore dice face up, and then you would continue the round as mentioned before. All right, well, that's how to set up and play Dicey Goblins. Now, if you have any other questions, go ahead and leave them here, and we will try to answer them as soon as we can.